instead of watching this show. That's a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife has cancer. And it's still more fun than this, okay? Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way. So in the end, he obviously didn't kill himself. Just like
that did this to both me and Corey that are still working. They're still out there, and they're some of the richest, most powerful people in this business.
Sarah Ruth Ashcraft on Twitter, who has been accusing Tom Hanks of her when she was 13. Her dad sold her to Tom Hanks.
Since when has this brand of common decency and professionalism been put on hold just because of...
At the Golden Globes, one unexpected moment quickly became a huge topic online. During a speech, Ricky Gervais made a harsh joke about the financier connected to the Epstein files. Right after the joke, the camera cut to Tom Hanks, whose shocked reaction instantly spread across social media. At first, most people saw it as just another awkward award show moment. But as time passed, online discussions started growing. Past accusations, strange internet theories, and renewed attention around the Epstein files pulled Hanks into a much larger conversation about powerful figures in Hollywood.
What made you think, you know what, I'm just going to hammer him? I don't care what the...
Well, I thought, when they said, do you want to host the Golden Globes, all that stuff I said in the show was true. I said, I'm going to write my own jokes. Right? And I thought, who do I pander to? The 200 richest people in the room or the 200 million people watching at home who aren't winning awards, who aren't millionaires. And it was a no-brainer. I was doing it for them.
Back in January 2020, the Golden Globes created one of the biggest viral moments of the year. Ricky Gervais walked onto the stage, faced a crowd filled with Hollywood's biggest names, and immediately started doing what he's famous for, roasting celebrities. He fired off joke after joke, targeting everything from Leonardo DiCaprio's dating history to Felicity Huffman's time in prison. He also took a shot at Apple, mocking the company for producing polished TV shows while reportedly relying on factory labor under harsh conditions.
Watching this show, that's a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife dies of cancer. And it's still more fun than this, okay? Spoiler alert. Season 2 is on the way, so in the end, just like Jeffrey Epstein.
No.
Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
It was classic Ricky Gervais. Bold, uncomfortable, and completely unfiltered. But then he pushed things even further. During the speech, he mentioned the financier connected to the Epstein files and joked that some people sitting in the audience may have known him. He quickly added that he didn't care. Right at that moment, the camera switched to Tom Hanks. His reaction instantly caught attention online and became one of the night's most replayed clips. At the time, most viewers treated it like a funny and awkward award show moment. People made memes, shared jokes, and moved on. But years later, the clip started getting a different kind of attention. Online users began rewatching the footage, asking why Hanks reacted that way and why the camera focused on him at that exact moment. That's when the story started growing into something much bigger than a comedy bit at an award show. People began connecting the moment to several unrelated events that had already sparked internet speculation. Some pointed to past accusations made by actor Isaac Cappy. Others brought up a strange Instagram photo posted by Hanks in 2018 that some online users claimed looked like a hidden message. There were also discussions about him and his wife receiving Greek citizenship. Then came the renewed release and discussion of the Epstein-related files in January 2026, which fueled even more online rumors after users claimed Hanks' name appeared in certain documents.
Tom Hanks is hiding a very dark secret. Who could forget Forrest Gump and Toy Story and even The Polar Express? One of my favorite movies of all time and franchises was Toy Story. And now you and I both know that Tom Hanks voices Woody, right? Oh, we're wrong. In the 90s is when Woody first burst onto the screen with the rest of the toys in Toy Story. And I'm sure we all remember Tom Hanks' voice saying, "There's a snake in my boot," or "You are a toy!" Yeah, but what if I told you that Tom Hanks didn't really do all of it? So in the franchise itself, Tom Hanks has 10 credits as Woody. There's someone with even more, which means that Tom Hanks doesn't voice Woody as much as the other person, which then means that Woody is somebody else, statistically speaking. And that person is the one and only Jim Hanks. That's right, his brother. Jim has 24 credits as Woody, and Jimbo has made a career off of impersonating his own brother. So we actually hear Jim Hanks doing an impersonation of his brother doing Woody. Jim as Woody can be heard in TV shows, films, and other merchandise.
Suddenly, all of those separate moments were being tied together into one massive online narrative. What started as a viral meme slowly turned into years of conspiracy theories surrounding one of the world's most famous actors. To understand how it all escalated, people often go back to that night at the Golden Globes. Ricky Gervais was doing exactly what audiences expected from him, pushing boundaries and making the room visibly uncomfortable. By that point, he had already mocked several major celebrities in the crowd before bringing up the financier connected to the Epstein files. He joked that even if some of that man's friends were sitting in the audience, he still wasn't going to stay quiet. Then came the now famous camera shot of Tom Hanks looking uneasy. That brief reaction, combined with Gervais' comment, sparked a wave of internet discussion that people are still debating years later.
That's the thing about offence, isn't it? When people say they're offended, it's that just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right. You know, it's offence is about feelings, and feelings are personal. Some people are offended by equality. So what? You know, so you can't second guess people. If you try and please everyone, you'll please no one. With comedy as well, I think you've got to deal with taboos and contentious issues. And sometimes you deal in irony, and some people don't get that. But, you know, you can't legislate against stupidity. Otherwise you'll be doing nothing, you know, because I'm not doing it for the 200 egos in the room. I'm doing it for the 200 million people watching around who aren't winning awards, who aren't millionaires. And freedom of speech is so important these days. I've reached the age now where I don't care anymore. It's a sin. Not to joke about all the bad things, that's a waste. Because that's exactly what we should joke about. If you can laugh in the face of adversity, you're bulletproof.
He is totally right about all of this. And also, the minute he steps off set, every one of the harpies of The View will attack him.
Instead of simply treating the moment as a meme, many people online began replaying the footage and analyzing Tom Hanks' reaction frame by frame. The conversation quickly changed from humor to speculation. Viewers started asking why he seemed especially uncomfortable during that specific joke. Out of all the comments Ricky Gervais made that night, people focused on why Hanks' expression appeared to shift during the mention of the financier connected to the Epstein case. As online discussions grew, some users also brought up comments and claims made over the years by actors like Jim Caviezel and Isaac Kappy. Supporters of these theories argued that both men had spoken publicly about alleged abuse and corruption tied to powerful figures in Hollywood, even while facing criticism and backlash. At the same time, renewed attention around Epstein-related court documents led to even more speculation online. Some internet users claimed the files exposed connections between wealthy or influential individuals and convicted criminals, while others questioned how much people in powerful circles may have known at the time. Discussions also intensified around why certain records connected to the case remained sealed or heavily debated.
What did go on at Zorro?
So twisted and so dark.
Jeffrey Epstein's mansion of horrors in the middle of nowhere.
Some of the most heinous things that anyone could imagine.
Place so evil.
Both died by strangulation during rough fetish sex.
No one could hear his victim's screams.
He destroyed my life.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
The Zorro Ranch in New Mexico sounds like it could be a desert Disneyland. After all, it was named after the fictional masked crusader.
By now, most people are familiar with the story surrounding Jeffrey Epstein. He was a wealthy financier accused of horrific crimes involving underage girls. But for many online, the bigger question has always been how far his connections and influence may have reached. Over the years, figures like Jim Caviezel and Ricky Gervais have fueled discussions about powerful people linked to the scandal and the culture surrounding elite circles in Hollywood and beyond. Epstein had built a successful career in finance and lived among extremely wealthy and influential people. According to court records and victim testimony, he abused and exploited many underage girls, often targeting vulnerable teenagers with promises of money and opportunities. Some victims were reportedly as young as 14 years old. Despite the growing number of accusations and evidence against him, Epstein reached a controversial plea deal in 2008 that many critics believed was unusually lenient.
Closer look at what's been called a sweetheart deal, the 2008 agreement that let Jeffrey Epstein avoid a federal trial and serve just 13 months in prison, despite evidence he had underage girls. That deal was negotiated by Alex Acosta, the ex-U.S. attorney in southern Florida and former labor secretary who served during President Trump's first term, before he resigned in 2019, once the plea deal came back under the spotlight.
It's very clear that Alex Acosta ran a deeply flawed investigation of the Epstein case. He also would not admit that Mr. Epstein received a sweetheart deal.
The plea deals sparked major outrage and raised serious questions about failures within the justice system. Many people felt Epstein received special treatment because of his wealth and powerful connections. Even today, there are still ongoing calls for accountability and justice for the victims affected by the case. For many observers, true justice feels incomplete, and they believe those harmed by Epstein never fully received the closure they deserved.
Days of sweeping this under the rug are over. We, the survivors, say no more. If Ghislaine Maxwell were pardoned, it would undermine all the sacrifices I made to testify and make mockery of mine and all survivors' suffering.
We are not going away. We are not going to be quiet, and we are not going to give up.
Many of Jeffrey Epstein's victims were vulnerable teenage girls from difficult backgrounds. Some were reportedly only 14 or 15 years old when they first came into contact with him. According to victim testimony, money was often used to attract young girls who were struggling financially or living in unstable situations. One victim described being paid around $200 for massages that later turned into abuse. Others claimed recruiters approached girls at school parties, neighborhoods, and low-income communities, suggesting the operation was organized rather than random. These accounts led many people to believe the abuse was carefully planned, with vulnerable teenagers being specifically targeted and brought into Epstein's circle. Several victims also described Epstein's homes as intimidating environments that made them feel trapped and unsafe once they entered.
I voted to get these damn files released, and it's like a total 180.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
He campaigned, he said, look, we're going to release the files. And what has been disappointing is for the last 5-6 months, have had to fight the administration at every step of the way, which gets me to believe, who?
Some online stories have claimed that Jim Caviezel and Ricky Gervais try to speak out about abuse connected to Jeffrey Epstein and the powerful people around him. However, these claims remain heavily debated and are not supported by confirmed evidence. Supporters of these theories argue that anyone who challenged Epstein's circle risked being ignored, attacked publicly, or pushed out of influential spaces. What is widely documented is that Epstein maintained connections with many wealthy and powerful figures for years. His activities reportedly stretched across several locations, including homes in New York City, New Mexico, Palm Beach, and his private island in the Caribbean. Victims and investigators described an operation that extended far beyond one city or one group of people. Flight logs, contact books, and court documents later revealed that Epstein associated with politicians, academics, celebrities, business leaders, and other influential individuals. Still, many observers believe the full scope of the network has never been completely exposed. It is also broadly accepted that Epstein did not act entirely alone. Ghislaine Maxwell, who was later convicted for her role in the case, was described by prosecutors as one of Epstein's closest associates. Authorities accused her of helping recruit and control victims while enabling years of abuse.
You're taught that predators are old men in alleys. You're not told that a friend, a socialite, a woman.
Over time, many online discussions have suggested that Epstein's circle and influence made it extremely difficult for victims to speak out or escape. According to victim accounts and reporting from the case, many survivors were allegedly warned that they wouldn't be believed, which discouraged them from coming forward for years. Some internet narratives also claim that figures like Jim Caviezel and Ricky Gervais were aware of broader issues and attempted to raise concerns, but these claims remain unverified and are part of ongoing online speculation rather than established fact. What is documented is that Epstein operated within a wide network of wealthy and influential contacts, which has led many observers to question how he was able to avoid stronger legal consequences for so long. His 2008 plea deal in particular has been widely criticized, with opponents arguing that the charges and outcome did not reflect the seriousness of the allegations and evidence at the time. Investigations later showed that Epstein's legal team worked closely with prosecutors during negotiations, and critics have continued to debate how the case was handled and whether the process allowed for accountability to be fully achieved.
I know this. The real story begins in 2006-07 when he's arrested in Palm Beach. And I think this is public and it's worth looking at, is the search warrant. The search warrant basically protected him and it prevented the authorities from collecting meaningful information. It was like, you're allowed to look in drawer 3, but not drawer 4. How did that happen?
Jeffrey Epstein eventually pleaded guilty in a Florida state case to 2 prostitution-related charges. As part of that 2008 deal, he served around 13 months in a Palm Beach County jail. During that time, reports and later investigations suggested he may have received unusually favorable treatment compared to typical inmates. These claims included allegations that he had access to special privileges, such as time outside the facility for work-related purposes and conditions that were more lenient than standard jail arrangements. The agreement and how it was handled drew heavy criticism later, with many questioning why the charges were reduced and why the overall outcome appeared far more lenient than what the original allegations might have suggested.
When he was actually in his private cell, the door was open. Epstein's cell door was left unlocked, and he had access to the attorney room where a television was installed for him. Let me make that clear. So he is not only allowed to leave his room whenever he wants, allowed to leave the sheriff's office for 12 hours a day, including one day of the weekend, because it's 6 days a week. They also went through an effort to install a television for him in the attorney's room. Not even the attorneys got that, but they installed one for him.
Victims were reportedly not informed about the plea agreement at the time, which many later described as deeply disempowering. For them, it felt like they were excluded from a process that directly affected their lives, first harmed by abuse, and then left out of the legal outcome. This handling was widely criticized and seen by some as a failure in how prosecutors engaged with survivors. Federal prosecutors at the time argued the agreement was still significant because it required Epstein to register as a sex offender. However, critics pointed out that monitoring measures appeared limited, and questions were raised about how closely his activities were actually tracked afterward. Following his release, reports and claims suggested Epstein continued to travel extensively, including using private aircraft and visiting locations linked to his past conduct. These concerns fueled ongoing debate about whether oversight mechanisms were strong enough to prevent further harm. In the years after the plea deal, multiple civil lawsuits were filed connected to Epstein's alleged actions. Some aimed to uncover more details about the scope of the abuse and whether others were involved, while others challenged how the original case had been resolved. Since Epstein's death, criminal accountability has no longer been possible, which has shifted attention towards civil cases, public records, and institutional reform. Advocates for survivors have emphasized the importance of including victims more directly in legal proceedings, arguing that exclusion can deepen the harm already experienced. Overall, the case has become a major example often discussed in debates about gaps in the justice system and how complex abuse cases are handled, especially when powerful individuals and settlements are involved.